I must have thank you for calling the Matt and Austin podcast. Okay. Hello, this is the Austin and Matt podcast. This is Matt.
And this is Austin.
This week we watched Reminiscence on HBO Max and in theaters. Austin, before we get to that, what did you watch this week?
Yeah, man. Normally I'd be like into a whole bunch of different movies or really anything like that, but like what really took up the core part of my watching experience was I got really hooked back into Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which I hadn't watched it since it like first got added to, well, since like it finished out. And that was like what, 2014, 2015. I just got into a conversation with like one of my consultants and they were talking about it. And I was like, man, like, I don't really remember it all that well. So I just been going back and watching it. And I started out with like the first couple episodes and I was like, I don't need to watch all of this. So I skipped to like episode 20 and then I just kind of watched from there. And one thing that I think is just super cool about the show, I know that like we've all seen it, but there's a hard line for people where the like Brotherhood's better or like the original's better. And for me, like I love the original and Brotherhood a lot. Like I think in their own things, like they're both great mediums. They both work well in the same world. It kind of just goes to one of those points where it's like if you gave two people like the same beginning but told them just to create from this point forward, like the amount of things they could come up with is just totally bananas. Super love that. I finished that just kind of the other day, and then here soon I'll be talking about the first half of the last season of Attack on Titan, which so far it's pretty bananas. So you should definitely watch it.
Full Metal Alchemist or Attack on Titan?
Attack on Titan, yeah.
Yeah, I think, and now that I have Hulu again, I'm gonna have to start that last season over again because I watched the first like 10 episodes. It wasn't even that long ago, and it is nothing but a distant memory now. So yes, that is something that I plan on doing. Kind of back to Full Metal Alchemist, I can say at least that there is a very hard line of which of those two has the higher quality animation, and I believe that it's Brotherhood. Sure. Yeah. Which I think is one of the reasons I had a hard time watching the original and have never watched the whole thing. So maybe someday I could give it a try and give my opinion, but I have a feeling I wouldn't like it, but I don't know.
I will say that part of the reason why I do enjoy it so much is I did watch it when it first came out where like that was kind of like the standard for animation. Comparing it now to just like crazy animation like Brotherhood, like My Hero, like Demon Slayer, where like there's just so much that goes into the production, it definitely doesn't hold up to the competition, but it's still classic animation, which is really nice.
Yeah Cool. Well, I watched, and because this is how pathetic my life is, I don't have Disney Plus, so I was in Utah, as you know, anybody could see from our last episode. I watched Loki on my dad's Disney Plus and liked it. Okay. I had a friend text me after the third episode came out and said, this is the best thing Marvel's ever done. I don't think this is the best thing Marvel has ever done. I think that it is... I honestly think that it's good. It's nothing special in my mind. It kind of... I got like some Doctor Who vibes.
Okay, yeah.
And you're a Doctor Who fan, so I don't know. You would be the one to make that judgment, really, because it's not like I've watched a ton. I think there were some things where I could really see what they were going for, but they fell a little flat. There's a scene where they're running around on a planet right before the planet is destroyed. And I just felt like that scene would have been really good had it had another $1 million worth of budget behind it. So, and maybe I'm just being nitpicky, but like it just, the scene did not work for me. I don't know why. I'm such a jerk.
I was kind of to the other point.
Say what?
I was kind of to the other point where it was like, if this was like a 24 episode season, yeah, like I'm totally in for an episode like this. And like the production of like that whole ending, like going to the city scene, like way over the top, crazy bananas. But when there's only like 6 episodes, I was mostly upset that it's like we really just had a filler episode and a 6-episode season. What? Because like nothing was really accomplished here. Like as you mentioned before, like it really felt like a Doctor Who episode the entire time, which I normally love that stuff. But like with Falcon and Winter Soldier, and before that, like WandaVision, it's like these things are so fast paced. For them just to kind of like stop it and like do a filler piece felt really jarring. But
yeah,
I still liked it.
I mean, it was good. I thought that what you could call a twist ending was just kind of like, I wasn't super into that ending. I would have liked something a little bit more concrete, I guess. So it was good. I'll definitely be watching the second season, but I just kind of found it a little, I don't know, off, I guess. I mean, if this is really building up to something big in the oncoming like movies, like if this is a really good tie-in series that's going to play into the events of the next movies, like great. If this is just its own standalone TV show, I'm a little bit more disappointed by it. So we'll see.
It will definitely play into the next part.
Okay, good. Well, that's good to hear and does get me more excited. Another thing that I watched, which has a very similar sounding name, I finally watched Luca with my boys. This was fun. I would probably put it lower. I'd put it mid-tier Netflix, like the kind of thing that's like, oh, there's some really cool stuff going on here, but overall, I just wasn't like in love with it. I wonder if I had seen it on the big screen and I had been able to give it a little bit more attention than I usually give on just like a home television, I would have enjoyed it more. But yeah, so it was fun. The animation, one thing I liked about the animation was that in like something like The Good Dinosaur, it's like you have these really cartoonish looking people and the backgrounds were like photorealistic. And while I like really respect Pixar's ability to create these amazing photorealistic backgrounds, it always felt off to me to see like a cartoonish character along with that. And Luca kind of went the other way again, where it's like, here's our cartoonish characters and our backgrounds look amazing, but they still kind of have that feel of a cartoon. They don't necessarily look photorealistic. And so to see them kind of return to that a little bit, I actually really liked to see again. But yeah. But the last one, kind of a big one, which I didn't realize came out quite as long ago as it did, but Horrible Bosses, which I had never seen. Funny movie. Jennifer Aniston, like, just was completely insane. Like, I don't think I ever would have imagined that she would have been in a role like this, saying things like she said in this movie.
Yeah.
And so I thought she was fun. Charlie Day was a ton of fun.
That's not my name.
But of those, I mean, really, those two were the ones that really shined, that really made the movie for me. Most everybody else, like Kevin Spacey, Jason Sudeikis, Jason Bateman, like all people who I love, I just wasn't feeling their performances as much in this movie. And so yeah, it was a fun movie. I'm somewhat interested in seeing the sequel, but from what I read about it, it's not that great. Are you looking at me like that because you didn't know there was a sequel?
I'm trying to think if I've watched it or not. Did it come out, or is it still like
years ago? Years ago.
Oh shit! Maybe I've seen it. Maybe I have. Obviously wasn't memorable if I did watch it, so that's great.
Jennifer Aniston returns, so that's good. Kevin Spacey is in it, and he's incarcerated, which seems kind of like prescient, I guess. Considering
makes sense.
So, yeah. Well, cool. That is all that I watched. Was there anything that you watched that you wanted to mention?
Let's talk about our movie. So I do want to say that this whole time I thought it was just Reminisce as the name, not Reminiscence.
Yeah, and I think there is a part where he says these are reminiscences. Like, wow, that's a lot of S sounds. But yeah. Okay.
Anyways,
cool. Let me give the synopsis super quick. Nick, a veteran of the future with a bum leg, lives in a flooded futuristic Miami where he and his associate Watts run a business which allows people to relive past memories in vivid detail. Enter May, a beautiful singer just looking to find her keys via recent memories. Nick and May fall for each other quickly and easily. Cut to months later where May has disappeared and Nick is tirelessly searching his own memories for clues to her whereabouts. Nick eventually discovers that he and May were pawns in someone else's game in which a young child is marked for murder for being partial heir to the wrong fortune. Nick's searching brings him to another person's memory, where May, aware that Nick would eventually find his way to that memory, says farewell and sacrifices herself to save the young heir. The movie ends with an aged Nick spending his remaining life reliving his memories of May. I know there's a lot more to the movie than what I just said.
That was
but
beautiful.
I didn't want to like go through a huge synopsis. Anyway, Austin, what did you like about this movie?
This is going to be a little bit of a love-hate for me. One thing that really stuck out to me is, as watching this, I honestly felt like I was in a video game. Have you played Bastion before?
No, but as you said that, I would have never thought it until you said it, where I was like, yeah, this could be a video game. So yeah, but I've never played Bastion. Tell me about it.
So Bastion is really, it was an indie game that came by storm. I think I want to say it came out in like 2010, around there. Highly recommend it. I think it's on like every console at the moment, but one of the biggest elements for it is that it's in like this post-apocalyptic world, and there's just kind of like this like heavy narrator in the back who's kind of just like telling the story of the land and like different people as you're kind of doing these like trials. So like all of these enemies are coming at you, and you just have this like really old man in the back that's just like, down in the dusty lands where the people live for just a drop of water, and like pretty much like that's like the whole game, and you get super immersed into the entire experience. What I will say is the game can get damn hard sometimes, because it's also kind of a shooter. So like when you hear a story for the third time, you're just like, shut the hell up, dude.
Like, can I turn this narrator's voice off? Okay.
Yeah. So like when we started getting those like really heavy narration periods, it did make me feel a little nostalgic for Bastion specifically, where I was like, man, like I really want to go back and play that now. But just kind of like some of the scenes and how they don't really answer how things happen or how people are like really live in this area. Like that's where it really felt more like that video game setting, where like you're just somebody who's plopped into this world and it's like, figure it out. But that's what I enjoyed about it. What about you, Matt?
There's a few things that I liked. I really, really liked the setting here, that flooded Miami. I don't know like a ton about climate change, but from what I understand, like Miami could look like this someday, kind of an idea. And I thought that worked really, really well. I thought that was cool. It looked good. It felt real. The way that they kind of used boats. And I'll talk about this later, but I didn't love the part where like Hugh Jackman's like, it's so hot outside, everyone comes out at night, or everyone has to be nocturnal. And it's like, that's one of those, yeah, but I loved that is the idea. The imagery really did look great. I was super happy with that. I really enjoyed, I mean, the overall concept here, the machine that they used to allow people to relive memories vividly. Probably my favorite scene that had to do with that technology was the fact that they were interrogating someone who was dead. It was like, oh, okay, that's really cool. That is a really interesting concept to look at, and that scene worked really, really well. It's almost kind of like I would like to see an entire movie about the guy who just does that, you know, like instead of this being kind of this noir story and a femme fatale kind of situation, like instead of that, just be like, oh yeah, I'm the guy who interrogates dying criminals to try and find the bad guy. Like to have a whole movie just about that guy would have worked for me really, really well as well. So to get that scene, although like I just said, it almost did feel like a completely different movie that had been kind of tagged in there for a little bit. That was a really, really cool scene. But probably like my favorite scene of the whole movie, the one that like turned me around on this movie a little bit. Like I was not loving this movie. I had a lot of issues with it. I absolutely understood what it was going for. Like I mentioned, that whole like noir type of story. Like it's going into kind of all those tropes, but it's happening in the future. Like I was really, really enjoying that. The scene that turned the movie around, where I was like, oh, okay. Instead of like feeling really mediocre about this movie or disliking this movie, was May's farewell to Nick. I thought that was a super cool scene where she kind of realizes like, I know he'll find this memory. I'm going to say goodbye and let him know how I felt. That scene, I was like, that's awesome. Like that's the type of scene that I could almost imagine like the whole movie being written for. Like the person who wrote this was like, oh, what if this technology existed, and what if someone did this and was able to say goodbye to someone in a memory of somebody else. Like I was just like, ooh, that's, I don't know, I really liked that scene a lot. Like really, it made this movie go from like a C+ to like a B- score for me. Like I really enjoyed it. So yeah, that was a really cool scene. Little nod also to like the hologram technology they had there. When I realized how that technology worked, that they had been using that whole time to see those like 3D representations of someone's memory, I was like, oh, like that almost seemed like an actual viable way to do holograms to an extent. Like instead of, because whenever I see holograms in movies, especially like
Star Wars,
the Iron Man movies and Avengers, like for example, like whenever I see like Tony Stark doing those things, I'm like, I'm not sure holograms like that will ever exist, but they're always in movies. To see a movie where there was kind of a hologram technology that I was like, oh, I think like that's something that could actually be a thing someday. I thought that was cool. But
yeah.
But anyway, enough of, you know, what we liked about it. What did you dislike about it?
Yeah, so it really felt like a video game.
I am not a stranger to having my likes and dislikes be the same thing, so you're good. If they were to like, and it's so funny that you're talking about a video game. Like if they were to make a video game, not of this movie that like, but takes place in the world of this movie, I would super be into that. Like I would love to see someone, I'm not sure what his name is, the guy who made Indigo Prophecy and Heavy Rain. Like if he were to make a video game in this world, it would be like a fantastic, exciting, great video game. But instead we got
Did you ever play Assassin's Creed?
I have never played Assassin's Creed, actually.
So in Assassin's Creed, they pretty much have a machine that lets you see the memories of your ancestors, and you actually go back and like relive that time. And that's how our main character is in like the present, but also like experiences things from the past. If this was to be incorporated into a video game, I imagine it would be that element of like, you find somebody, you kill them, and then you throw them into a machine, interrogate them, have different like dialogue options, and then you're solving like all these different like murders and mysteries and things like that. Like that sounds pretty dope. Yeah. Or you can choose to not kill them, and maybe you find out like they were innocent, so things work out that way. Like there could be like good, bad, like there's a whole lot of options for it, but for a movie, I don't think it works out the best. Except I will say that the scene that you're talking about, the farewell, is probably the best scene.
Yeah, like really. If I'm gonna just jump back to that. Like if the writer of this movie was like, well, I had this idea for this scene, and then I wrote an entire movie around it, I wouldn't be surprised at all, because that scene's worked so well. Also, and I'm gonna jump back to likes, can we also just mention the fact that like the two lead women in this movie were not like hot 20-year-olds. Like I respect that so much. Like I was looking at, and they both look great. Like I've always loved Thandie Newton. I really liked who played May. Her name escapes me right now. But like seeing them both in this movie and being like, oh great, like they are like the main ladies in this movie and they look great and they're not 19. And I think a much lesser movie would have paired the 50-something-year-old Hugh Jackman with like a beautiful 20-year-old chick and been like, this is normal, this is okay, everyone should accept this, you know? Like I hate when movies do that. So I was really happy to see like this movie cast like an age appropriate group of people. So I really like that.
Yeah. So one weird, not a weird thing, but like a really cool fact about Hugh Jackman is, if you didn't know, he's been married to the same woman since 1995. And she is 15 years older than he is.
And I'm not saying that she's bad looking, but she doesn't look like a supermodel or a Hollywood actress. Like she definitely doesn't have that look, but they seem like they're in a happy relationship. Yeah. I love that about him.
Incredible.
So as for like my dislikes, I think the heavy narration was probably my biggest pet peeve, and I think it annoyed me a little less. Like as I mentioned, this is definitely like going for like a noir kind of story, and so like the narration makes a little more sense at that point. But I definitely think like the same movie could have been made with easily like 60% less narration, and it still would have been great. Like it still would have worked just as well. And along those lines, like the exposition dumps using the narration just felt so, I guess, lazy. I mean, there were so many things that we could have just been shown instead of told, and they just kind of told us right out. And maybe this is the kind of thing, I mean, a movie that's similar to this is actually Blade Runner. The very first Blade Runner movie didn't have a lot of narration and was supposed to kind of be this futuristic noir movie, and the director wasn't given final cut, and the studio basically went in and added a bunch of narration to kind of explain. Maybe that's something that happened here, where the studio was kind of like, people won't get it, so we'll have Hugh Jackman tell everyone exactly what's happening the entire time. And so the narration got on my nerves. I didn't think that it worked that well. But I was, like I said, I was able to forgive it to an extent because it is kind of a noir type of story. So I was like, okay, that's cool, that's fine. What do you want to watch next week?
Definitely want to check out that horribly rated Adam Driver movie, Annette.
and really, even if the movie genuinely is terrible, we still get Adam Driver out of it, which I could just watch a movie of him alone in a room all day because he's awesome. So I'll take that.
It's great.
Okay, Annette, have a good week. I will talk to you next week.
Bye, friend.
Annette.
Next week. Annette.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.